And there it is, Bubba Watson with a convincing performance on this Sunday, 7-6 over Kevin Kisner to win his second World Golf Championship.
Hello and welcome to Teeing Off on this Monday, March the 26th. I'm RJ McCullough and Bubba Watson is your latest PGA Tour winner, so let's get right into it. Bubba Watson wins the WGC match play, defeating Kevin Kisner 7-6 in the final match on Sunday. Just a complete blowout. Bubba won the first 5 holes to take essentially a vice grip on the trophy, wrapped both hands around it, and never looked back. Pretty much the two golfers, Watson and Kisner, they both played great golf all week, but Kisner clearly showing signs of fatigue down the stretch. After he grinded out his 19th hole win versus Alex Noren in the semis, Bubba beating Justin Thomas in 16 holes, that definitely added to some of the fatigue. And then after playing Bubba, Kisner himself even admitted he didn't have it, feeling lost at times out there on the course, and saying that his legs felt like jello. Fair enough. Watson now has 2 career WGC wins to go along with his 2 green jackets, and his career win total is up to 11. Considering his career goal was just to get to 10, everything now for the rest of his career for Bubba Watson is just gravy. So good for Bubba. When pressed about his chances in the upcoming Masters, though, Bubba played a little coy, jokingly responded, "I'm not a favorite. I'm going to definitively say that I'm not a favorite. I don't want anyone to talk to me that week. Let me just focus on what I've got to do. I'm not going to play well that week, so nobody talk to me." In reality, though, of course Watson is among the favorites. He's currently listed 16-1 at the Westgate Las Vegas Superbook, just behind the likes of Tiger Woods, Dustin Johnson, Jordan Spieth, and Rory McIlroy. When pressed if Tiger should be the favorite, Watson had a slightly different take than you'd probably expect from another PGA Tour golfer, saying, quote, "If Tiger was sitting next to me, he'd think if I do my job, I'm good enough to beat Bubba. And if I'm sitting here and Tiger was right there, I'd think if I do my job, I'm good enough to beat Tiger." All golfers are going to say the same thing. Maybe to the media, they might sugarcoat it, but we all think we're good at our sport. Fair enough, I guess. Just interesting to hear someone actually come out and say that, and especially Tiger Woods. You would never have seen a guy say that in Tiger's between 2000 and 2008. You would have never seen a guy say, "Well, if I play my best, I'll beat Tiger. If Tiger plays his best, he'll beat me." No, it was pretty much understood that if Tiger plays his best, everyone else is done. However, after being listed as low as 8-1 following his tied 5th finish at Bay Hill, Tiger's now listed a little lower or higher at 9-1. He's ahead of Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, and Rory McIlroy. Still, 2-time Master champ Bubba. His win was his second victory in the last 5 weeks. He went from 25-1 to 16-1, and he was originally listed 40-1 when the odds opened in August. So here's a look at the odds on some of the other top names, with just one tournament, the Houston Open, left before the season's first major. We got 9-1 Tiger, 10-1 Dustin Johnson, Justin Thomas, and Rory McIlroy. At 12-1, it's Jordan Spieth. 14-1, Justin Rose. 16-1, I mentioned Bubba. He's also there with Phil Mickelson and Jason Day. At 18-1, we've got Jon Rahm and Ricky Fowler. And then at 25-1, Sergio Garcia and Paul Casey. Obviously goes down from there. Those are the favorites. Bubba, a little bit more. In his post-round interview, he opened up a little bit, sharing a conversation he had with Phil Mickelson, saying he's going to have to apologize for Phil for making the conversation public. I'm sure Phil will understand. He also made a plea to the U.S. Ryder Cup captain, Jim Furyk. And real quickly, on the topic of the Ryder Cup, it was announced on Monday that the 2028 Ryder Cup is to be held at Hazeltine National Golf Club. No course in the U.S. has ever hosted the event more than once, so Hazeltine will be making a little bit of history there. No doubt the spectacularly successful 2016 Ryder Cup led to this decision. Usually I like them to move around the Ryder Cup, keep it fresh, different courses, different areas of the country, get everyone involved. But if you haven't read John Feinstein's book about the behind-the-scenes story of the Ryder Cup at Hazeltine, I highly suggest doing that. I've sort of plugged it before, but I'm going to mention it again because it's really, really good. So yeah, I think this is a good play. Off the course, there were a number of complaints from both fans and players as to the current match play format for the event. For years, we accepted that in exchange for a frenzied, wild Wednesday that features 64 of the world's best players scrambling to avoid being one of 32 guys sent home within the first couple hours of the event. We were okay with sacrificing a mediocre Sunday if the matchup wasn't that great for that, for that amazing Wednesday and Thursday. But 4 years ago, the PGA Tour decided to take that away with the introduction of round robin play. Now we get 3 watered-down days of pool play and a boring Sunday. Seems like a mistake they need to revisit. Several players chimed in on it, Graham Dillette among them. Dillette chimed in on Twitter with the following. Played match play in Tucson in 2014. Early group on Wednesday, lost. Threw clubs in my car and was on my couch in Scottsdale by 2 p.m. Collect $30K and spend the weekend at home. That's a good format. This one sucks. Can't really disagree. I don't think the tour loves guys bragging about making an easy $30K and being on their couch by 2 p.m. after a couple hours of work, but who cares? Having to play a meaningless match after you've already lost one and know you're not advancing, not only is it pointless, but it creates a competitive advantage or disadvantage depending on where you play a certain guy. If the group play, if it's the final match of the group, 3 players in the group have a chance to advance. The one player is already eliminated, so 2 of those guys are going against each other, both with a chance to move on. The other guy gets to play a guy that has no interest and doesn't really give a shit because he's going home either way. So clearly stuff like that is a huge advantage, and there's so many of those scenarios that just don't look good at all. Like, realistically, these guys are all so good that they can beat each other on any given day, but if you take any motivation out of it for just one of the guys and add motivation to another, that's a pretty big chasm in anything you do. It just doesn't make sense. It's no fun for both the fans and the players. I say go back to the 64-man bracket. It's during March Madness, so you're going to get an automatic publicity bump for at least the first day, probably the second day as well. You also get the fun of a 64 versus a 1 seed. I remember when it was Tiger facing, I remember he lost it, I think it was Nico Hearn. Something like that. Way back in the day, it's fun watching a 1 versus 64, a 2 versus 63. It's part of the fun of the March Madness, seeing these big upsets on day 1 and 2. If it's just 2 teams playing each other, or just 2 guys playing each other, and you don't have that David versus Goliath, it definitely adds something having that. So without that, a lot of the enjoyment is lost. I'd say the WGC match play is officially lost its luster. It's the worst WGC event on the calendar, and it's time to mix it back up. James Hahn had a complaint about his ousting as well, but it didn't really have anything to do with the format. Instead, it was actually about the way in which he was knocked out. Hahn was eliminated on Friday, losing his 3rd round match, so he didn't get past group play, but he had a chance to. He lost to Jason Dupner 3-2. But according to him, it was a fan that contributed to his loss. After his round, he took to Twitter, the sounding board of the PGA Tour, apparently, and he claimed that on the second to last hole of his match against Dufner, a guy yelled purposely on his backswing. The tweet was later deleted, but the full text read, quote, "Fought hard today after a bad start. 2 down, 4 to go. Guy yells purposely in my backswing. Whether we like it or not, this is where the game is going. My fault for not expecting the worst from fans. Just sucks to lose a match that way." Realistically, it's unclear exactly which shot Hahn is referring to because you can't hear the audio on any of his shots, but he did make a bogey 5 on the par 4 15th, which is the hole he's talking about, while Reed made a par to move 3 up in the match, essentially ending the match. He would go on to follow the first tweet with a correction that stated, "I respect and love all golf fans, but I can expect bad behavior from them. And I'm not blaming the fan for losing the match, just disappointed I lost the deciding hole in that fashion." From there, James got into it a bit with several critics on Twitter, responding to his post, defending himself by saying he wasn't blaming the loss on the fan, but that it's just inexcusable that the guys on tour are having to deal with this all the time. Spectators shouting in backswing and making inappropriate comments to players has been a consistent problem on the PGA Tour, especially this year in 2018. It seems like every week now a new incident pops up, most notably a couple weeks ago when a fan was ejected from the Honda Classic after loudly rooting for one of Justin Thomas's tee shots to land in a bunker. We've all gone over that, so I won't go back into that. But even during the match play this week, it happened. A fan got ejected early in the week for heckling Sergio Garcia. We usually see this sort of stuff in the Ryder Cup, but it obviously looks like it's making its way across the rest of the tour. As a golf fan personally and also a bit of a golf nerd, I'm sort of torn on this. On one hand, you've got this younger side, the more in tune fans of the game. They're following the game of golf now. Whether it's watching more on TV, in person, whether it's more social media, Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case may be, or just simply you can boil it down to the fact that Tiger Woods is back on the tour now and everyone's excited. I don't know, but it's hard to say as a PGA Tour, we want new fans. We want young people that are going to be injecting new lifeblood into the game. That's what every sport wants. You can't have golf not wanting that. But on the other hand, this can't be happening every single week. The experience, if it does start happening every week, the experience at golf tournaments is going to significantly drop off. Rory has already mentioned cutting off golf's alcohol sales or at least curtailing them, having less or no liquor being sold on the grounds. If this stuff keeps happening, the benefit of watching golf live, the main benefit of it is being that you're so close to these guys. You can follow them in their entire round and be right beside them. But that is in danger of going away. Alcohol sales in danger of going away. It'll be a real shame if a few bad apples are essentially going to ruin what is a lot of fun for the rest of us. That seems the way society's going these days, but again, not what we want to see. So everyone just take it easy, but I can see both sides of it. Ian Poulter was another non-happy golfer this week. Again, nothing to do with the format, but he has a legitimate gripe. It was he did get blown out by Kevin Kisner, which sort of mitigates his point. However, following his morning victory in the round of 16 over Louis Oosthuizen, Poulter was incorrectly informed that by making it to the Elite Eight, he was assured enough official world golf ranking points to move into the top 50 and qualify for the Masters. He did not. He was going into the event. He said that really the only thing he cared about coming into this, to get out of the week, was obviously he would like to win, but really the main thing was he wants to get into the Masters. He was told he was. He wasn't. Said afterward, I should never listen to other people. This again was after an 8-6 loss to Kevin Kisner in the quarterfinals. When you finish a round of golf in the press and everybody is telling you, oh, you're in the Masters, and then you get a text message 10 minutes before you tee off to correct everybody that says, oh, we've made a mistake. Actually, no, that was wrong. You're not in. You need to go out and win your match. Not that it's an excuse in any form or factor, but it's a little disappointing. That's what Poulter had to say. Now, Poulter actually needed to advance to the semifinal round to move into the top 50. Instead, his last chance to qualify for the Masters is to win this week's Houston Open. He is in the field, but he's not sure if he's going to play. I don't know yet. I haven't decided, said Poulter when asked if he'd play next week. I'm tired. It's been a long week. It's been a draining week. I'll wait until Monday night, and if I have the energy, then I will. At the moment, as I said, he is listed in the field, but time will tell if a withdrawal is in the cards. Definitely a bad situation to come up, but considering he lost 8-6, not 2-1, I don't think it was the only factor contributing to his loss. All right, Tiger time. Couple of things this week. First, Tiger has committed to play in the 2018 National, the PGA Tour event that honors his TGR Foundation, and is played at TPC Potomac in the Washington, D.C. area. Tiger has won the event twice and will look for his third the week of June 25th through July 21st. I think it was John Feinstein pointed out, a little bit interesting that when it's one of his events that honors his foundation, he announces months in advance so that they can really prepare properly. When it's other events, he kind of just announces a week or two ahead. But whatever. I don't really, that seems pretty normal to me. I don't really read too much into that. Second, Tiger practiced at Augusta National last week, the first time playing the home of the Masters since he competed in the 2015 tournament when he tied for 17th. Tiger said following tie for 5th at the Arnold Palmer Invitational that he was going to go out to Augusta for a scouting visit to get a feel for, quote, playing that style of golf again, and he did so in a trip that lasted 2 whole days. I'm sure he's going to spend most of this week working on fine-tuning his game and certain shots he needs to hit around Augusta. And then we'll see him at Augusta in the par 3 contest early next week. It's going to be interesting to see who he has with him. One of his kids, maybe his girlfriend. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see who he's got in the par 3 contest. And finally, this is the bigger news of the Tiger news. There is a new Tiger Woods book coming out this week. A book simply titled Tiger Woods. Yeah, that's it. Tiger Woods. The release date is Tuesday, March 27th to be exact. So depending on when you're hearing this, you may actually be able to run out and get it. Either way, though, at least hang around till this thing's done. As usual, there have been a few interesting excerpts leaked ahead of its release. Kind of surprised there hasn't been really more publicity made of this book. Usually when there's a book coming out about something big, it gets a lot of publicity. I only heard about this a few days ago, but the excerpts are pretty interesting. It's going to be a little long, but and I'm not going to read the whole excerpts, but interesting stuff. Some really good quotes. They interviewed Golf Digest did a Q&A with the authors of the book. There's a few quotes that I can't pass up, so I'm going to read those out. And then there's another story that got sort of leaked, or an excerpt, whatever you want to call it, of a story between Tiger and former U.S. President Bill Clinton, and a bit of a rift between the two. So I'm going to get into that. I'll start off the Q&A. To start, describe the cooperation of Team Tiger, rather the lack of it, and how you worked around it by doing more than 400 interviews. They responded, understandably, Tiger chose not to talk with us for the book. However, he did authorize one of his doctors, Mark Lindsay, who served as his longtime chiropractor, to speak with us on the record. In addition to being interviewed, Lindsay provided us with a written explanation, technically a legal declaration, that is the most comprehensive statement to date on whether Tiger used performance-enhancing drugs. Okay, wow. So there's been rumors, innuendo. A lot of people that aren't big golf people just throw that out there all the time, that it's just basically a fact that Tiger did steroids. Again, anything that comes to Tiger's character, I am biased, so I'm going to throw that out there right now, but I'm not going to believe that he did steroids. He did get very big, and he's had a lot of breaking down of his body, so I can understand why people would say it. But on the other hand, he was obsessed with working out. He notoriously would run like 10 miles a day, a couple times a day. He would do 2 a day, so it's not like he wasn't in the gym. But then again, you could say his recovery time was aided by. So I could see people arguing it. I just personally don't think he did steroids. But and also, if he did, and this statement that's going to be in the book said that he did steroids, I'm sure it would have been the leading story for the last month on every sports station. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that there's going to be no one coming out and saying, yes, he did steroids, but he did have some interesting connections with Dr. Anthony Galea and some kind of sketchy people. So I'm sure there'll be some sort of, Tiger never did steroids, but hey. Another little excerpt. An incident between Tiger and Steve Scott in the 1996 U.S. Amateur Final. Tiger was 2 down with 3 holes to play and had a 6-footer to win the 34th hole. Tiger had moved his ball marker on the green to accommodate Steve, who had made a tough par putt. They report in the book that as Tiger prepared to putt for birdie to cut the lead to 1 up, Scott stopped him and asked him if he'd replaced his ball mark to its previous spot. Tiger immediately paused, stood up, and reset his ball to the correct spot. If Tiger had putted without doing so, he would have lost the hole and the match. Tiger made the birdie putt and went on to win the title, but they report that Tiger didn't thank Scott or acknowledge his action. And they asked Scott about it, and he was obviously very upset. His caddy, who now is his wife, they both found it very disrespectful. My reaction, we all know Tiger, especially back when he was coming up, and his dad was, all the mental stuff going into it. We know he wasn't out there to make friends. We know he was there to win, and I'm not actually surprised, to be honest. Frankly, Tiger might have seen it as a mistake. Tiger made a mistake by not putting his ball back, by Steve Scott telling him. He essentially just gave Tiger the match. So I don't think Tiger would have done that. Let's just put it that way. Again, I'm letting Tiger off the hook here because the nice human being thing to do would be like, oh, man, thank you so much. But when you're in the heat of the battle, I'm not too surprised Tiger didn't say anything. There's like a 20th anniversary thing about it, and Tiger did then thank Steve Scott, but obviously too little too late. But interesting that this grudge has helped us along, and that just simply, when we look back on Tiger's career, those U.S. amateurs were such important moments in building this aura around Tiger. And if he would have lost one of those because he forgot to move his ball mark back, I mean, the whole aura of Tiger changes. So very interesting. Another quote here. You quote a former nightclub owner in Las Vegas who said, quote, when Tiger got famous, he got mean, end quote. How so? They responded, at that time, Tiger was spending time with Michael Jordan. The two of them had a reputation for coming across as entitled and for being stingy when it came to tipping. So my reaction to that, we've heard the stories of Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan. They go out to clubs, Tiger's all shy. He says, how do you get these women to talk to you? And they literally say, dude, tell them you're Tiger Woods. So, I mean, when I hear the story, it's similar to that. So I believe it. The tipping thing, sort of heard before. I'm always curious, though, when you hear about this, because, I mean, they're at a club, they're getting bottles, they're hanging out with all these people. What, like, tipping in that sort of sense is so abstract. Like, if you're spending $100,000 at a club, are you expected to tip $20,000, 20%? Or if you give someone like $5,000 for bringing you a few bottles, $5,000 is nice for a few hours of work, but it's not 20%. So things like that, I don't know, like what some athletes are probably just throwing away money. Maybe they weren't throwing away their money and that was seen as stingy. I don't know, though. They could have been complete assholes. So interesting. And then last excerpt before I get into the Bill Clinton story quickly, they were asked at the end, do you see a new Tiger today? Their response, without a doubt. But that's also not that surprising. Like anyone who reaches his 40s, Tiger has changed. His body is different. His perspective has changed. There are new priorities. Plus, in Tiger's case, there is the fact that he's gone through some very difficult personal challenges. His long battle with pain has perhaps been the biggest factor in changing his outlook. Immobility has a way of making a person more acutely aware of and appreciative for the simple things in life. Then consider that Tiger was the best in the world at one thing. To suddenly be unable to do that one thing is devastating, but to regain that ability is no doubt exhilarating and gratifying, and to a certain degree, humbling. Tiger's greatest achievement to date may be the fact that he's crawled out of a deep, dark hole and climbed back into contention. He's given everyone, golf fans and everyday people, a reason to root for him. Yep, pretty spot on. Can't really add much to that, but that was a very astute look at pretty much exactly what's going on with Tiger Woods. And now for the Clinton story. Again, a little bit long, but I mean, it's interesting look into Tiger. So on 9/11, when Tiger was in St. Louis preparing to play in the WGC American Express Championship, the tournament was, of course, abruptly canceled. So with flights grounded, Tiger Woods had to drive back to where he was going. He rounded up a rental car and started driving toward Orlando and home. Alone on the highway for 15 or so hours, he had a lot of time to contemplate what mattered in his life. Tiger felt inspired to do something more in the world. He didn't have a clear vision, but he knew he wanted to focus his efforts on helping young people. And he began to see that the Tiger Woods Foundation, as then constructed, was not the best vehicle. The result was a 4-year effort to fund and construct the Tiger Woods Learning Center, a state-of-the-art facility focused on teaching science, technology, engineering, and math to underprivileged children. With a grand opening scheduled for February 2006, Woods was looking to generate publicity. Long story short, they requested former First Lady Barbara Bush and California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, but they were unable to fit the event into their schedules. With time running out, Tiger's camp reached out to attorney Doug Band, Bill Clinton's longtime counselor. Band couldn't help seeing the irony in Tiger's asking Clinton a favor, recalling a story. And here's the story. It involved Tiger declining to attend a 1997 ceremony honoring the late Jackie Robinson, sparking a schism between Clinton and Woods that was later widened by a subsequent Ryder Cup incident in which Clinton walked into the U.S. team's locker room only to see Tiger walk out. Later, Woods refused to have his picture taken with Clinton when the victorious American team visited the White House. For these reasons, Tiger was sure Clinton would never go for it. The ex-president, he insisted, hated him. Woods never let a slight go, and he assumed Clinton operated the same way. However, after much wrangling, the former president people came back and said Clinton would be amenable to an appearance under certain conditions. Tiger had to personally call and make the request. As an icebreaker, Clinton wanted to play a round of golf with Tiger in Orange County when he came out for the event, and he needed a private plane to travel to the West Coast. Pretty reasonable. After several moments of whining, Tiger got over his reluctance and made the call. A gracious Clinton put him at ease, and the event and golf game were scheduled. Well, on the day before the official opening of the Learning Center, Woods finally met with Clinton, Doug Band, sports agent Art Tellem, and Wasserman for the promised round of golf at Shady Canyon Country Club in Irvine. At that point, Woods had never met anyone there, so dispensing with introductions, Tiger wants to know one thing. The president had arrived. Well, when he was told Clinton was on his way, Woods replied with a straight face, "I can't wait to talk about pussy." The situation got even more awkward when Clinton arrived, Tiger doing nothing to bridge the gap between him and Clinton. At the outset, Clinton started carrying on, monopolizing the conversation, as he was known to do, before Tiger interrupted and simply said, "How do you remember all that shit?" Once they got onto the course, Tiger acted completely indifferent to the entire group, mostly riding alone in his cart and spending an inordinate amount of time on his phone. After finishing a hole, he would routinely exit the green while others were still putting. When the president hit a wayward drive, Woods snickered. He also told a series of off-color jokes. He was really obnoxious, said one observer. It was so clear to me that day who Tiger really was. I've never seen the president more put off by a person than that experience. To make matters worse, about a week later, Clinton's office sent a picture of Clinton and Woods on the course together and asked Tiger to personalize it and send it back to the president for framing. Whether Tiger forgot or simply ignored the request remains unclear, but many months later, a staffer for Clinton called Tiger's office in exasperation and asked essentially, what the fuck is going on? At that point, Tiger scribbled his name on a photograph and sent it back. Years later, a longtime Clinton staffer had unpleasant memories of the entire situation, saying, Clinton hauled his ass out west, and you can't sign a picture. The whole experience was a lot of, I'm Tiger Woods, kind of king of the world. Go fuck yourself. My reaction, I hate to hear that about Tiger, but I mean, I'm not too surprised. He was young. He was on top of the world. He didn't give a shit about anyone. Maybe he didn't agree politically with Bill Clinton. Disappointing for sure. Makes Bill Clinton look pretty good. Just kind of sucks to hear, but just imagine Tiger Woods asking Bill Clinton about all the pussy he got in the Oval Office. That is a lasting image right there. Back to the real world. Well, kind of back to the real world. Tony Romo. Yep, that Tony Romo. Tony made his PGA Tour debut this last week at it's kind of a side PGA Tour event opposite the match play. It was the Corrales Punta Cana Resort and Club Championship, and Tony finished dead last when he missed the cut. Romo finished the week 15 over par. He was actually even par through his first 12 holes in the opening round on Thursday before shooting a 5 over 77 in round one. Then the wheels fell right off early Friday afternoon, and he ended with a 10 over 82. Romo ended the event 6 shots worse than anyone else in the field through 2 rounds. Ouch. My reaction to this, get the hell off the professional tour, Tony. Aren't you doing enough? Jesus. You get out of the NFL, you get in that booth, you're calling stuff at AT&T, you're playing the AT&T, you're trying to qualify for U.S. Opens. You're the worst player in a B field, C field, really, of a PGA Tour event. You're the worst player by 6 shots after just 2 rounds. And you were even through your first 12 holes. It was one thing when Steph Curry teed up on the Web.com tour, but that's not the PGA Tour, and Steph at least beat some guys. Hopefully this sends a sign to Tony that professional golf career, not in the cards. Time to hang him up. And also hopefully it shows a lot of people that it's one thing to be really, really good at golf. It's one thing to shoot even par. Maybe you shoot under par when you're playing your home course. To actually tee it up in a tournament setting, and a tournament where if you hit a ball out of bounds, you're not just reteeing it. You miss a 2-foot putt. You're not just saying, I make that if it mattered. No, an actual tournament setting with pressure, with fans, with everything going on. It's a different game. Hopefully Tony learned his lesson. This week, the PGA Tour that is, remains in Texas, heading from Austin to Houston and stopping at the Golf Club of Houston, a 7,441-yard par 72 course. Widely praised for its ability to imitate Augusta National setup, the Reese Jones design returns for its 12th edition as the lead into the Masters. Club officials here, they always go the extra mile to deliver shaved banks, collection areas around the greens, a stint meter reading 13 or more. They do everything they can to make it as similar to the setup at Augusta as can possibly be. Last year, Russell Henley used 10 birdies to overcome a 4-shot deficit on the final day, booking the final Masters reservation with a 3-stroke win. For this year's edition, Jordan Spieth, who turned to playoff last year in 2015 into a Masters title, and World Golf Championships Mexico Championship winner Phil Mickelson headlined the final tune-up of the year's first major. For the rest, a final Masters berth is available if the winner hasn't already qualified for next week. Top 10 names in the field this week, in my opinion, would be, I mentioned Spieth, Mickelson, Rose. We've also got Henrik Stenson, Matt Kuchar, Ricky Fowler, Jason Dupner, Brandt Snedeker, Thomas Peters, and if he decides to tee it up, Ian Poulter. In all, 6 of the top 20 players in the world are on site for the week before a major. That's really good. aside from a Masters invite, there's actually a lot on the line for a number of guys this week. India's Shubhankar Sharma, he was given a special Masters invite after holding a 54-hole lead at the Mexico Championship. He's chosen to do his prep work here. Two-time major winner Martin Keimer, he's teeing it up on the U.S. soil for his third time since last year's U.S. Open, trying to round into form at the right time for the Masters. And the duo of Ernie Els and Lee Westwood, they've got a lot on the line this week. They're set to tee it up in long shot hopes of extending lengthy Masters runs. Els has missed Augusta just once since 1994, while Lee Westwood has had a run of 13 straight. That is now in jeopardy, unless one of them can win this week. For the favorites, though, it's all about preparation. It's not really about, it's nice to win, but that's not the main priority this week. Phil Mickelson, for example, his 4.5-year win the stroke came to an end in Mexico. He will fine-tune after his Friday departure from the match play. Before the match play, he had 4 straight top 10s. Jordan Spieth, he also failed to make it out of group play, although he was 2-0 before falling to Ryder Cup partner Patrick Reed, which is probably the most hyped match of the entire match play. It determined who went past their group, but nothing in the grand scheme of things. But anyways, Jordan has yet to place higher than 9th this season, so good finish here will go a long way to showing that he can come through. I know he kills it at Augusta, but since that collapse a few years ago, been a little different for him. 3 players who reached the round of 16 in Austin that will be teeing it up this week. Matt Kuchar, Charles Howell III, and Ian Poulter should be here in hopes of keeping the momentum going from last week. And the last gasp Masters berth that I mentioned, it has come into play actually for the past 5 editions. Russell Henley did it last year. He joined Jim Herman from 2016, Matt Jones 2014, and DA Points in 2013 as guys springboarded themselves with the last chance on getting into the Masters. For Lee Westwood, I mentioned him earlier, Houston is the only non-major U.S. stop he's played since 2015, so you can really tell how badly he wants to get into the Masters. And the Houston Open has gone to a playoff 23 times in 72 editions, almost 1 in 3. So don't be surprised to see a playoff again this week. It'd be really cool to see 2 guys battling it out for one of them to go to the Masters. That is just about where I'm going to leave off for the week, though. One last note, Houston is the perfect tune-up tournament ahead of next week. So even if the top players aren't right at the top of the leaderboard, which, as I mentioned, is not really their priority, it's important to take note of how their chipping and putting look with the greens and the setups as similar as you're going to get, as I sort of mentioned earlier, very similar to Augusta. So if guys are having a tough time here, they stand basically no chance at Augusta around the greens. If you see guys horrible putting, can't chip well, write them off for next week. But if you can find some guys in good form that maybe they don't put up the best overall scores, maybe their ball strength's off a little bit, maybe they're trying some shots out for next week, but around the greens they look really solid, that's something to keep in mind for next week, which, of course, is Masters Week. I wasn't able to do a blog last week. I just ran out of time before the event started, to be honest. A Wednesday start will do that to you. But I will have this week's article with picks on Wednesday and some video clips throughout the week on Twitter. As usual, feel free to reach out with any feedback. Rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends to listen, etc., etc. I'm RJ McCullough, and I will talk to you next